Hey guys, Gus here at Backcountry Ballistics. So today we're going to start a new video series, and the video series is going to be based on a new rifle. So what you would do, this episode is going to be kind of assembly, and then we're going to go into barrel break-in, scope mounting, load development, and finally some testing and stuff like that. So today we're going to put the rifle together, we're going to build the rifle if you will, and I'm going to show you kind of some tips and tricks that I do to make sure that the rifle is built square, or not square, but correctly, and it stays together correctly throughout different competitions and things that I'm going to do with it. So this is going to be a competition gun. This will be used for NRL Hunter Series this upcoming spring and summer. And I shoot in the teams division with a buddy of mine, and we have a 16-pound weight limit. So I have a little bit of flexibility there, but there are some things that I am going to tailor this setup to make sure that it works well in that format. So real quick, just going over the rifle, AERO Precision, barreled action. This is going to be a 6.5 Creedmoor. This is the 24-inch Sendero taper with the straight flutes. Again, guys, you can go back to a previous video I did where I did the review on the AERO Precision Solus. It's a really solid rifle for the price point. It's not an impact precision with a custom cut barrel. It's just not. However, I think for the price point, it bridges that gap between buying kind of a real true factory barrel like say a Tikka or something like that, and then adding parts to it. Not saying the Tikkas aren't great, but I think this is kind of that happy medium, and I really like it. So now I have a ton of parts for it as well. Like if you go back to that video again, talk about some of the issues I had and some of the parts that I have now because of it, but have all that stuff now, so I feel pretty confident going forward. So that's the action and barrel. Chassis is going to be the MDT ACC Premier Gen 2, and I've never used a true chassis like this before, so I'm anxious to use one and kind of give you guys some feedback on that as well. For a chassis, it's relatively priced relatively well. I feel like you can get really crazy with chassis. However, I think this one is kind of that sweet spot for a little bit nicer feature set, but not being $2,000 for a chassis. So definitely excited to give you guys some thoughts and feedback on that. The scope is going to be a Leupold Mark IV and a PR3 reticle, 6 to 24 scope. That seems to be a really good range for me. I like being able to zoom up a little bit more when I'm shooting groups and things like that, doing load development. However, doing these NRL competitions and things, most of the time, 95% of the time, I'm shooting on straight 10 power. So good range there. I think it's really good for this gun. Weights, kind of all of this together is, I'm hoping to be about 15 pounds. I don't ever want to go to a competition and be 15 pounds and 14 ounces and then show up and their scale's a little bit different, and all of a sudden I'm pulling lens caps off and bipod feet and stuff like that to try and make weight. So all that's being said, we'll give you a total weight at the end, but we'll keep going. Bipod is going to be the rider match bipod. This is going to clamp directly to the ARCA rail of the chassis, but this thing's really cool. It's a very affordably priced triple pole style bipod. So you can see here, you can get way up there and be able to shoot, kind of that high kneeling with a tripod rear, which if you haven't shot an NRL Hunter yet, there's a lot of stages where that can be super handy. So rider bipod, that's the 9-inch match. Seekins Precision 34mm scope rings high, and a area 419 muzzle brake for now. I want to see where I come in with weight on everything. There is a chance I end up shooting a suppressor this competition season, but for now we're just going to put everything together with a brake, and we'll do initial load development stuff like that with this brake. So other than that, guys, trigger's in here. It's a Trigger Tech special flat shoe, so really like the flat shoes. First time I've ever used a special. I've usually used the primaries, and they're a little bit stiffer trigger pull, so anxious to be able to pull this guy down to, I think it's 1 pound. Yeah, 1 pound to 3.5 pounds. So being able to pull down to 1 pound on the trigger pull, but still having the flat shoe. So anxious on that, but as I've done in the last few videos, I'll pull the camera in close and kind of go through things here. We'll start by assembling the chassis and then putting the barreled action in it, mounting the scope and trigger and everything like that. So again, this is kind of a rough assembly, and as we, I'll do a separate video on scope mounting and then obviously load development, stuff like that. So for now, we'll pull the camera in and get going. Alright guys, so part of this is going to be kind of some unboxing stuff. Again, I have a lot of products with this build that I have not shot before, so I'm kind of excited on some of this stuff. But a little bit will be unboxing, and then also kind of some assembly stuff and some little tips and tricks that I do to, again, keep the rifle shooting well. So this is the MDT ACC Premier Gen 2 chassis, and we're going to go through and kind of assemble this all basically the way I think it should go. If we have some issues, we'll do some adjusting later on. But I did the flat dark earth color. It's a cool color, and yeah. But basically, what we have here, we have the base of the chassis. So this is going to be the inlet as well as the forend, which is really cool because again, this is super rigid and does a really good job holding everything together. And you know, that's why everyone's shooting chassis these days, is they have a lot of upside for sure. So we're going to go through here. I'm going to show you one thing that I do with all screws that I do, or all screws that are on any of my rifles, but we're going to pull kind of everything out. I got some fix-it sticks here that we're going to go through and pull some, these are the action screws. So those come out right there. Pop those guys out. So again, this is a AERO SOLUS, so it's a 700 clone. So action screws are like mullets. Business in the front, party in the back, short screw in the front, long screw in the back. So one thing I want to highlight here, that this will be something that we do on all these screws, but if you see here, it has this factory oil on it, on pretty much everything you guys, you know, any sort of screw or anything like that. So you see that factory oil that I just pulled off of here? That's something that's going to be really important as I'm putting everything together here, that I'm going to take a can of goof off here, and I'm going to strip all of the oils off of there. So kind of run a little goof off. So especially the threads, now we're going to use a paint pen on all of our threads just to make sure that you know, everything stays together the best we possibly can. There's no shifting or moving or things moving around. You can see there on that, this is what holds the buttstock to the chassis. You can see there that's a pretty good amount of oil and stuff on that screw. So pulling that off and putting a paint pen on there. Paint pen acts a lot like blue Loctite, so it's an anaerobic fuser. It does a really good job with, it doesn't need air to dry, so it kind of acts, you know, well, it dries like paint and then gives it that kind of little bit of break resistance when there's recoil and stuff like that. So again, here's our buttstock. We have all sorts of stuff in here. Just kind of make a pile over here. So we do have some instructions, but I think this should be pretty self-explanatory. Again, here is our buttstock screw. We're going to poke that guy through. And then, so the paint pen, you don't have to get too crazy with it. Sorry, I got kind of some weird light coming in right now, but a few dabs kind of around the screw, just to where all those threads get a little bit. And we'll make this up. And let's grab this Allen wrench first. Allen wrench in here comes with it, which is great. So get that started. There we go. There we go, got that kind of snug. We're going to take the short side and kind of refund it, make sure we are good and tight. So that feels pretty good. Just do a little bit more just to make sure. But again, with that paint pen especially, you know, gives me a little bit of confidence with the chassis and things like that, that I'm not going to have those weird point impact shifts and things like that, that I think will be, or in a competition gun especially, it's you know, important to have. So got a vertical pistol grip here for this guy. Looks like we have a mating system right here. Those screws are going to go all the way through. screws in here with some washers and nuts. Get that out of the way. So, looks like we have a core in here, and then we have the side plates, if you will. So, what we're going to do first is kind of rough in those side plates. So we have some screws and nuts in here, and we're going to do the exact same thing here, where we are going to basically, we have our goof off rag here, some goof off, at least get the portions of the screw where it's going to lock onto the nut. You don't necessarily need to spend a ton of time and a ton of goof off or acetone or whatever you choose to use. You don't have to do a ton of that, but just enough to get all that in there. And it looks like these guys are going to slide it in there, and they do. Going to use another Allen head. If I can find the right size. There we go. So, cool thing about this pistol grip is it is like adjustable, so I can kind of fine tune where I want that to ride, excuse me, not ride, but where I want that position of the grip to be in relation to my trigger, which is really cool because I don't have incredibly, big hands, so some chassis and stocks don't quite work for me the way I wish they would. Looks like that's a little bit of a longer bolt. Let's see here. Again, we're doing this live, guys, so bear with me. Looks like we need to put this guy on first, actually. Alright, well, maybe we should look at some instructions. Looks like that goes in there. Again, you can't quite get that. There we go. So that's there. Take the goof off. Some paint pen. Couple dots. Don't need to get crazy. That is it. There we go. That's the screw we took out of there. So put that guy on there. Again, we're doing this live, guys, so you can laugh at me or tell me in the comments how dumb I look, but we'll figure it out. So there's that guy. Of course, why not one other size of Allen wrench to use? This is going to be our base for our grip. Make sure that's on there square. And we'll torque her down. Good there. Alright, so you got your grip here. Grip side panels, I guess you'd call them. Looks like they are going to clamp together. Some little pins and stuff like that. So we'll slide that in there. Again, we have screws on one side, nuts on the other. I'm not going to apply paint pen on these yet, just because I don't exactly know where I'm going to want them. So we are going to, that side's larger. If I knew exactly where I wanted them, I would probably put some paint pen on these as well, but I don't, so we're going to figure that part out when we go to the range and shoot this thing, and we'll go from there. So, got that. Uh-oh, lost a nut. There we are. So, got that there. So that's there. Tighten all this down. I'm assuming I'm going to want this grip in the most forward position, so that's where we're going to start. You can also add an angle to it or all sorts of cool stuff. So we'll just start here far forward, and I don't want to strip those guys out, but there we go. There is our chassis, and we are good to start rocking and rolling. So I'm going to hit pause on the video here while I kind of get things reset. I'm going to put the chassis in a tripod, and that way we can put the barrel action in and be all nice and square and everything. Alright guys, so here we are with the barrel action, and we are going to install the trigger on this barrel action. So the AERO SOLUS does use a trigger hanger system. So down here on the bottom of the action, there is going to be a little insert here. It's going to sit in there. Let's see. Been a while since I've done one of these. It's going to sit in there like that. So we're going to push the pins through the trigger to start, and then we'll put that in there. And then there's a little tiny set screw that goes in there to keep everything together. So here is our Trigger Tech special trigger. Off to the side, take our trigger hanger. There is only one way these pins go in. There's two pins that are rolled. So we'll see here if we get lucky on the first one. Nope. Try this side. There we go. So see that it just pushes in there flush. Kind of just do it with your thumb. If you have to put more pressure on that, you're probably doing the wrong pin or the wrong slot. So just make sure that you don't have to use a ton of force. This one with the safety is a little bit tricky. So just make sure that it slides right in. That'll lock up there. A little bit of pressure there, but not bad. So that guy slides right in. Then our trigger sits, if you don't quite get that one just flush, it won't sit in that trigger hanger hole. So there we go. So a little tab in the front, slides right down there. We have the world's smallest Allen wrench. Excuse me, Torx head. So, yep, Fix It Sticks has it. So, that guy, I'm not going to paint pen this guy necessarily, but I'm going to goof off on him just to pull any oils off. And actually, you know what, screw it, we'll put a little bit of paint on there as well. So, you can see there, a lot of oil on that guy. Put just a small drop on this one. Shouldn't need a lot. There we go. Get that out of the way. And I'm going to put that guy in there. There we go. So one thing I've already done is I've already ran a bore scope down this barrel and just kind of made sure all of the chamber marks and stuff were, you know, it's not like you can really tell 100% if it's concentric and centered, but it looks pretty good. So I'm pretty excited about that. Here we go. We'll test the bolt in here. Test the trigger. So obviously back is safe. Good there. Fire. That goes. That goes. So we're good there. That's awesome. And now we are ready to put it in our chassis. So got the chassis right here. That going there. So integrated recoil lug with AERO SOLUS, which is awesome. Love that about these guns. So that's going to fit down right there. And again, like we talked about, Remington 700s are like mullets. Business in the front, party in the back. So we'll paint pen this guy up. This one, again, once we kind of go back through and make sure everything's really good and set, we'll go back through and kind of torque all these down. And going to take a pause right here for just a second. Nice, we're back. Sorry about that. Actually going to pull it out of the tripod for now. This will be a little bit easier. So barrel action goes in. Nice thing is with chassis, you don't have to bed them or anything like that. So that's helpful. That guy there. Use our, again, we're just going to kind of rough this in, then we'll come back and torque everything down when we're done. So, short screw in the front. Get some traction, there we go. So, we're just going to go real light on this guy. Paint pen here. Ooh, different size in the back. So 5/32 in the back compared to the 3/16 in the front. A little bit different, but whatever. Goes here in the trigger guard. Maybe. Shoot, it was the big guy. Let's see. Oh yeah, that makes more sense. Alright, like I said guys, we're doing this live, so bear with me on a couple of these. Put our paint pen on here. A few drops. Get it good. So, makes more sense. It is a 5/32 on everything, or excuse me, 3/16 on everything. Makes more sense. Get that guy in there. So we got it kind of in there. Recoil adjustment. Clamp her down. And you know what, we'll just do this one right now since I know we're not going to change this. So the fix it sticks, and we're going to go to 55 inch-pounds to start with, and probably end up going a lot more than that, but that's where we're going to start. So that goes in there. 55. Come in here. And 55. Double check it. 55. And in here. 55. All right, so we have our barrel in action in the chassis with the trigger. Give it a test run here. That's awesome. So, all right, let's go to putting our scope on here. Again, this is going to be kind of a rough, just a rough set. We're going to do a whole video on scope mounting and all that good stuff later. So stay tuned for that. This is just going to be kind of a temping everything out, getting it in the rings, a quick level adjustment and stuff like that. So we have our Sequence Precision rings here. Already pulled these out of the packaging. Here are these guys. They're going to go T25, I think. Yep, T25. So break those guys a little bit loose. I'll have to look up the torque specs exactly for the Sequence rings again, but off the top of my head, I believe it's 20 inch-pounds on the top of the rings and then 40 inch-pounds on the sides, but we will do that when we do our little bit more in-depth video. For now, we're just going to get everything on here and get it on here and show a weight, because I'm super anxious to see how this all goes together. So, kind of rough set of ring up here. It should be ballpark close. Do all my screws on the side, so you can put them on whichever side you like. I just like to keep both rings, or excuse me, both pick screws on one side, so it's easy to keep track of. Had really good luck with the Sequins rings. They are kind of spendy, but they just hold zero so much better than anything else I've ever had. Not that I've tried them all, but what I have tried, these guys do a really, really good job. So what we'll do, put these guys back in here. It's kind of dumb of me to pull them out, but put them back in there on both sets. They are machined out of one piece of aluminum, which is really cool, and they do a really good job, like I said. Actually, these ones might be steel even. So, kind of rough set. I'm assuming that should be relatively close. Get the scope out of the box and check it. Real excited to try one of these Mark IVs. I've had a lot of friends and people I know use them, and yeah, anxious to try them. I think they're a pretty cool scope, so definitely anxious to try one and see how I like it compared to the Night Forces. Trying to find a flat spot on here. Usually the back of the action is a pretty good place to grab a level. I'm going to put a level there and just drop a level on top of the scope cap here. Wow, we guessed pretty good. So it kind of looks like we have a good amount of room there for some shifting around. We'll go into eye relief and things like that when we do our full scope mount video. And obviously I would definitely use the paint pen on these guys, but for now we're just going to kind of get it on there, and I'm sure once we go to the range and stuff like that we'll have to mess around with that a little bit. So just kind of snugging these guys down. One thing is when you're putting the tops of these rings on, you want to make sure your reveals are pretty equal, so you don't have all your gap on one side of the rifle compared to the other. So those first two especially, just make sure that they work well. Or excuse me, they have a similar reveal. But there is that. Our level shifted quite a bit, so we're going to go back and check that. Level's good there, not so good there. So again, as you're kind of going about this, just making sure that you're as level as you can be. And usually if you just crack a couple screws on each base, or excuse me, each ring, you can kind of level that guy up. I will also do a plumb bob test on this as well. So I'll set up a 4-foot level. Actually, I have a Sharpie mark on my garage wall here that is my plumb bob. So once I have this all mounted, I'll run it on that plumb bob and make sure my reticle is perfectly flat. So right there, we're square from the chassis. The action, can't quite get a good level on that, but we're square on the chassis and we are square on the top of the scope. Feel pretty good about that. Obviously we're going to do a little bit finer mounting job here shortly, but for now we'll get these kind of temped on and we'll keep going. So as you can see, as you tighten the screws, if you pull tension on one side too much before the other side, you kind of shift your shift your level. So just be really diligent as you're tightening your screws and your top caps, that level is staying in the center. A lot of times guys will do their level thinking they're good, and then they'll get out to the range and, you know, as they put a level on the scope or your plumb bob on a target stand or something like that, it's off quite a bit. So there is that. Just gonna go back in a crisscross pattern. Again, we're not torquing yet, so just giving it kind of a rough idea. all that. And yeah, we are good for a muzzle brake. So shift this guy down. 5/8 by 24 is what these barrels come threaded as. So pretty easy to take your favorite brake. Area 419 has kind of this unique mounting system. There's a lot going on here. I've never had one of these brakes before, so curious to try it, but throw this guy on, see where we end up. Again, we have a self timer here that as we loosen, we can retighten. And dang it if that's not pretty close right there. So, whoops, as I break it loose. That looks pretty good. We're a little off. Trying to get this part pretty close now. That's good and level there. Tighten that counter washer, that counter nut. And man, keeps moving that 30-second return or so. They have a bunch of, there's like reverse threads and stuff going on here, guys, so bear with me. Probably set that first one first if you're a smart person. So let's do that. There's this insert mounting system here where this screws and is free. Again, it's reverse thread. So go that way. We'll slap this guy on here. Alright guys, so that's it. That is the rifle all put together. And again, this is going to be kind of the start of a series. We're going to go back through, do a better scope mount tutorial, and then we're going to go through and do initial load development, kind of checking lands, kind of getting a rough idea of where we think things are going to be. And then we'll go through and do a little bit more, a couple more videos on like load development, being a little more precise and things like that. But super excited about this rifle and really excited to see how it does this competition season. And it's going to be fun to take you guys along for the ride as we get it from out of the box to hopefully shooting really well in competitions and being a rifle that you could hunt with if you had to. So thanks guys. Make sure you like and subscribe. Please comment below what you think about the setup and if there's anything you'd change. But anxious to see what you guys say and really anxious to get this thing out and get it shooting. So thanks for watching.